You found it at a flea market, small, old, wrapped in dried sinew. The vendor couldn't tell you what it was made from, couldn't tell you where it came from, but the moment your fingers closed around it, something in the air shifted, like a held breath finally releasing, like something far away suddenly noticed you. That feeling should have been your warning. Bone rattles are among the oldest ritual objects humanity has ever created. Archaeologists have unearthed them across every inhabited continent, dating back tens of thousands of years. And here is the detail that keeps historians uncomfortable. In nearly every culture that used them, bone rattles weren't considered musical instruments. They were considered doorways. Shamans, death priests, spirit walkers, they all understood the same thing. Sound made from bone carries a frequency the living world cannot contain. Think about what that means for a second. When you shake a rattle made from ordinary wood or clay, you produce sound. That's all. Physics. Vibration. Air displacement. But when the object creating that sound is constructed from calcified remains, something else enters the equation. Ancient practitioners believed the bone itself retained memory. The creature it once belonged to, the life it once animated. And when you introduce rhythm, when you create a pattern with that memory, you aren't just making noise. You're sending a signal. The question has always been, a signal to what? Across indigenous North American traditions, certain ceremonial rattles were never touched by untrained hands. Not because of superstition, because knowledge mattered, because calling something required understanding what might actually answer. The Siberian shamanic tradition treated specific rattles as living objects. They were fed offerings. They were kept wrapped and hidden between uses. When a shaman died, their rattle was often buried with them rather than passed on. Not as a tribute, as a precaution. You don't bury a tool out of caution. You bury something dangerous. The pattern that emerges when you research this deeply enough is unsettling in its consistency. From West African ceremonial practices to Norse traditions to the ritual objects recovered from Bronze Age burial sites across Europe, the consensus is uniform. Bone rattles open something. They thin the boundary between the space the living occupy and whatever exists adjacent to it. And the shaking doesn't just initiate the opening, it sustains it. Every sound a continuation of the invitation, which means stopping the sound doesn't necessarily close the door. This is the part that folklore returns to obsessively. The summoning is easy, the arrival is inevitable. But dismissal requires its own ceremony, its own specific knowledge, and not every tradition preserved those instructions. Some accounts describe the doorway remaining open indefinitely. Others speak of whatever answered the rattle simply choosing to stay. Attached, curious, hungry in ways that have nothing to do with food. So that rattle at the flea market, the one you're still holding, have you shaken it yet? Even once? Even just to hear the sound it makes? Because if you have, something already heard you. Something already oriented itself in your direction, and it has been moving toward that sound ever since. The question isn't whether you believe in any of this. The question is whether you're willing to risk being wrong.